Okay, guys, welcome to our first Blender lesson. Just to go over some of the basics in Blender, the navigation, how to move. I feel like it's a good way to start is just to dive straight in and start building our first asset. So instead of going through the whole, this is how you move, this is what button you press, I will be doing this at the same time, we're going to be more constructive, and I feel like it's better to be building something as I go along and explain. So, this is Blender, this is version 4.2, this is the LTS version, long-term support. I'm just going to enable the screencast keys. So what that does is now you can see in the bottom left corner what buttons I'm pressing. I've made it really big so you can see what buttons I'm pressing. So this is the Blender. This is the what you see at the beginning in the C when you create a new file. We're going to just click and drag, left mouse button and drag, and we're going to delete everything here. So you press A to either select everything or just click and drag everything you've seen. We're going to press X and then press delete. So or you can press delete on the keyboard. But I prefer to use X because we will be using this in our workflow as we go along. So in this first lesson, I thought it'd be a good idea to start. We're going to make an egg chair. And it's always good to bring up a reference picture on when you start to build an asset. So I'm going to press Shift A. This is where you add in your mesh, curves, surfaces, all sorts of different sort of objects or text and images. We're going to bring in a reference image. So I'm going to click on reference, select my egg chair and bring that in like so. Don't worry, it is a bit wonky. That's absolutely fine. We're going to press N on the keyboard. That brings up your side panel on the right hand side. And we are going to select, we got these little tabs on the side. We've got item, which we need. So as we have this currently selected as we brought it in, we're going to select each one of these and hit 0. So we're just going to scale it all to 0 and hit enter. So as you can see, it has now made our image flat. So let's hide this panel over here again by pressing N. So as we have this selected, and if you look up here in the top left corner, this is object mode. So we want to stay in object mode for this. We want to press R for rotate and X and then type on your keyboard 90 and then left click to confirm. We want to also move this back a bit, which we'll now press G for grab because now we've grabbed it, and then we'll press Y to go along the Y axis, and we'll just push that back a bit. Don't matter, it don't have to be accurate on how far you want to push it back, but I'm just going to press number 8, and then I'm going to press G and Z to bring that up, and I'm just going to type 3 on the keyboard and just have it like there just for now, just so we have that in the background. Right, okay, so holding shift and then middle mouse button will pan your screen around. If you just middle mouse button and rotate like so, this will just rotate around your screen. There's a little trick to this. If you feel like you are rotating and you are going off somewhere else and it is not rotating on the spot, as you can see, the middle axis there where my 3D cursor is, I'm rotating all the way around that. If you are having issues, that might be because you have your selection orbit turned on. So if you go to your preferences, go down to navigation and orbit around selection. Now, this is ideal sometimes for different types of work, but for now I like to keep it off. I do like to keep depth ticked on and perspective ticked on. These are my main settings when building assets in Blender. So when you've clicked all that and you've set that up, let's just close that. Let's start now. So when you middle mouse button, your cursor is exactly where you will be rotating. For example, if I middle mouse button over here, and I hold middle mouse button and rotate, It's just rotating randomly in a spot on the floor, like so. But if we go back here and I press middle mouse button on the image, you see the middle mouse button as you're rotating around is on the image. And so therefore, in the work you are navigating, holding the middle mouse button to rotate, make sure your cursor is on that object that you wish to edit. So we're going to dive straight in. We're going to press Shift A, brings up your add menu. This is where you will be bringing all the mesh and different objects in. We are going to start by bringing in a UV sphere. They'll be doing something a little bit different. Not as a plane or a cube, but we're going to jump in and we're going to start with the UV sphere. I feel like this lesson will be beginner / intermediate. There will be modifiers we will be using, but I'm trying to cover all the basics in a short period of time. If you wish to leave any recommendations, please feel free to let me know. Leave a comment below on YouTube and reach out to me on Discord. So now we've got our sphere in, I'm going to press S to scale, and I'm going to scale that up to about, I'm going to type in 3 on my keyboard. So the main 3 functions that you'll always be using on the keyboard is G for grab, right click to cancel, by the way. So you know, if you press G to grab, if you press left click, it'll confirm to place it, and Control Z is to undo what any mistakes or anything you've made, which is universal across all programs, I believe. So G is one of the main functions you'll always be using. S is to scale, which you'll always be using, and R is to rotate. So these are the 3 combinations you'll always be using throughout your whole project. And so will X, Y, and Z, and they are on the axes. So you can press R, and then you can press X, and as you can see, you rotate on the X axis. R or Z, and you can rotate on the Z axis. Or you can do scale on the X. As you can see, you can stretch and put your objects in small, like so. Or you can grab and you can press Y. So there's loads of combinations that you can do amongst just those keys. So for now, we are going to rotate this UV sphere. So we're going to press R, X, and we're going to rotate that 90 degrees. So as you can see, we have made it so that we can see the nipple of the sphere on the Y axis. We are going to press Tab to switch modes now to edit mode. So object mode, edit mode is when you're pressing Tab, it will switch between the 2. I probably will not be saying that all the times when I'm pressing it, because I do it without thinking. So first things first, we are going to select this middle edge loop. And to select this middle edge loop, and to select just these edges, you'll notice when you go into edit mode, you might not be able to select these edges like I am here. That would be because these little 3 icons at the top, number 1 is your vertex select. So when you select number 1 on your keyboard in edit mode, so you press 1, you can then select these vertices. If you press 2, you can then select the edges, and at the top here, the little blue icon will highlight what you are selecting. And you'll press 3 to then select your faces. So for this, we are going to select, we'll keep it on face select, and we want to select all these faces going in a line all the way around the sphere and back around. To do this, we're going to hold Shift and Alt and double click on the edge. This is face select, so I'm trying not to confuse you too much. So we're going to hold Shift and Alt and we're going to double click on this edge. You see where my cursor is? Now the reason I'm double clicking on this edge, because this edge is aligned going this way. As you can see, it's now selected an entire row. Now if I double clicked on this edge, Now that would be going that way. So depending on which way you want to select your edges, your faces in the row it's going, you will select moving your cursor to, it always depends where your cursor is on screen. Say for example, I wanted to do an edge select. So I've now pressed number 2 and I can now select these edges. If I want to select this edge going all the way down, I'd hold Shift and Alt and just double click the edge. As you can see, I just clicked it in the middle and it goes only one way. That's because Shift and Alt selects it going like this. But if I now hold Shift and Control and I double click this edge, sorry, Shift, Control and Alt, all three, Shift, Control, Alt, it will then select going this way. So I don't want to overwhelm you at this stage, but at first we're just going to press number 3, face select, hold Shift and Alt, make sure our cursor is on this line and selecting the whole row like so. We then want to press X to then delete these faces. We will then hover our cursor over this half of the UV sphere and press L, which will then, what L does, it selects that entire layer, that entire level. So that would be everything that is not attached to the rest of the objects. So if all your vertices are attached to the geometry and there's all one model, you hover your cursor over it, press L, and that will select everything. So we're going to press X, and we are going to delete that. So there we have it. We have half of a sphere. Now, looking at the image, you might think, oh, this could be a bit complicated. Don't worry. Everything that I've just said is what we will be using, and we will just be repeating the same process now and again by deleting the edge loops. That is what these edges are called, going around the sphere. They are called edge loops. We can take them out and we can add them in by pressing Ctrl R, which I will go more into that in just a moment. What I would like to do again is keeping it on face select number 3. I will just draw a little selection of a box. Don't worry if you don't have the cursor and you can't draw a box. If you go up here on the left hand side, click and hold the little icon, and then you have multiple selections. Just make sure your select box is selected. So we are going to draw a little box and we are going to delete those. And again, we're going to go keep it in face select, and we're going to hold Shift and Alt, select all of these and press X to delete those. Now I've deleted those because we're also going to edit this later on. I'm going to use the bag and I will do something different with that because I didn't like, when pressing Ctrl Z, I don't like to work in tries. So these are tries, as you can see. There are 3 vertices it's connected to. It's always good to work in quads, always, and the quad flow is a big deal when you're modeling. So pressing X and deleting these faces, and then holding Shift and Alt, double clicking the edge which way you want to go, and then press X and delete faces. There you go. We will leave it like that for now. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to select edges and we're going to delete a lot of them. Now, at the beginning, when I brought the sphere in, there was a little menu on the bottom left. We could have edited the edges there and then, which would have been an optimal way of doing it. But I thought for this purpose, for the demonstration of the video, I'm going to show you how to edit it yourself without using the commands, the tools you get at the beginning. And what I mean by this, I'll do a very quick demonstration. Shift A, mesh, UV sphere, This is the little box down here in the bottom left corner. We could have turned it down to say 16. We're half from 32 to 16. As you can see, go to edit mode. It's less poly than the current sphere you see in the back there that we brought in. And obviously we can get that lower and lower as much as we want. So, little trick. So we'll go from, as you can see, I'm switching, pressing tab, object mode, edit mode. So object mode, select your object, then go into edit mode. If you finish with that object, press tab, go to object mode, select your other object, and then you can go into edit mode if you want to edit that object. So when we are clicking on this object, going into edit mode, we are going to select, this is just completely random, you can select any edge along here. I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to press and hold Shift, Control and Alt, and then double click to select all these edges going like this. Then we want to delete loads of edges at once. Now this is a very optimal way of doing it instead of doing it like this. Click this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, and then dissolving the edges, which I'll explain in a second. This way, I would say, is far more optimal. You can then hold Shift, Control, and Alt to select all your edges. Then you can go up to here to select, and then you go check a deselect. So that will check one, deselect next, check one, deselect next, and like that, and so on. Now we've checked a deselect that, we're going to go up to here and click on select. We are going to go down to select loops, and we want to select the edge loops that are going around. As you can see, it will now select all the edge loops that it was connected to. Then we're going to press Control and X. What that does is it dissolves the edges. So if we just Control Z and go back, if you press X on your keyboard, here you have these are versus edges and faces. These are things you can delete, which will completely remove them from the project, or you can dissolve them, which what that does is you will dissolve what's there, and if there's any mesh connected to it, it will then join the current mesh with whatever mesh is there behind. So if we dissolve the edges, which is Control X, as you can see, it has now removed those edges. Now, it's a bit too round, so we want to make it more like an egg shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press A to select all, and then number 3 to select faces, and we're going to scale this on the x-axis. Like earlier, as I explained, you can squish them down like so. So I don't want to squish it down too much. I'm going to say, when scaling on the x-axis, I want to say, I don't know, let's do 0.8 on the numpad and press left click to confirm. Yeah, I think that's okay for now. I'm then going to press G and Z, and I'm going to bring that up to roughly where it might be, and then put legs on it. So I'm going to say, I'm going to press 5, just roughly there. Don't worry if it's too big or too small, that's not a problem. You can always scale it down, keep the sizes and the proportions the same throughout the whole model. Don't try scaling one part down separately to any other piece. Otherwise, you might upset the workflow balance and then you'll end up going around in circles. So keep everything the same size. I'm just going to select this image at the back. I'm just going to scale that up and then just move that back a little bit. There you go. So it really doesn't matter how big your egg chair is going to be. I'm just pressing scale and then pressing GY to align the image. So here we are. I've just now selected the egg chair in object mode. Press tab for edit mode. Right, okay, so now we've done that, we want to make the bottom bit a bit more flat. So it's like that to put a cushion on, and maybe a slightly flatter top. I think we'll leave the top for now. So for example, we're going to press number 1 for vertex select, and we're going to select this from vertex. Now, what we could do, there's multiple ways of doing this. We could turn this little tool on up here. It's called proportional editing. What that does is, just by default, you can click on it, and then if you press G, you see this giant circle, this grey circle, which you can then scroll wheel in and out. It then highlights up. You can press G and Z, and then you can bring that up like so to make more of a flat surface, which you can then scroll out. The more you scroll out, you can see more of the geometry it does affect. So I think sometimes it's difficult to see from the view you are looking at. So when you're using Shift and middle mouse button to get a good view to look at it, when you press G and Z, you can get it to go nice and flat. Say for example, if I wanted these four to be flat, what you could do in face select mode is select all 4 and press scale, and we've got the proportion tool turned on. If we press scale and then Z and then 0 on the numpad, as you can see, what that does is you're scaling it on the 0 axis, meaning whatever you have selected will go completely flat along the Z axis. However, sometimes when doing this, it stretches the geometry around, and it might not be the best way to do this. So in this scenario, what we're going to do is let's try and see what happens if we select in edge select this edge and this edge, and we're going to press scale and Z and 0. So instead of face select, I've now hit edge select. Okay, it's a little bit better, but still it's pulling on the edges on the geometry, and I think I'm going to stick to just clicking on the vertex at the front and pressing G and Z and just bringing it up. It doesn't stretch too many, and I think that looks just great actually. So I'm going to say 0.5, and I actually quite like the look of that. So I'm going to leave it for now like that. Excellent. Right, I think I'm going to pull out the sphere a bit as well. I feel like it could be it's too thin, so I want to stretch it out. So again, we're going to press number 3 for face select. You don't have to press 3 for face select. I mean, you can have whatever one you're on, and you can press A to select all, and you can scale. Before we scale it, let's just turn off the proportional tool. Just be aware, sometimes when you turn it off, I do it all the time and I forget I have it on. So let's make sure we keep that off for now. And we're going to scale now on the Y axis. So with everything selected, as you can see, we can make it a little bit deeper. That's exactly what we want to do. I'm going to type in 1.5 and have a look at that. Okay, I think that's not too bad. I quite like that. It's quite cozy. It's quite deep in there, and I think that will be pretty nice. Right, so I'm just going to go back to face select now, and we are going to select the bottom part down here, and we're going to make a couple of legs. As you can see, this is just one plane. So if you're using this for a 3D object, we will need to put some depth on this. As you can see, it's just one object. So this is where a modifier would come into play. However, using these edges that are going around, we want to somehow simulate what is going on in the picture with these tiny little woven threads going all the way around like a cage. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go press tab into object mode. We're going to go over here now, and we're going to use a modifier. Now, before we use the modifier, I'd like to duplicate this sphere so we have a backup. And to duplicate it in object mode, we're going to press Shift D for duplicate. So now we have made a backup of this sphere, and that backup is 0.1. So we're going to hide that for now and reselect our current sphere. Right, now we're going to go over here to the modifiers, add a modifier, and we're going to generate, not generate, I think it's under deform. No, sorry, it is under generate. There it is at the very bottom. It's called wireframe. So once you select wireframe, as you can see, it will now take on the effect of all the edges and the faces combined together of the wireframe, like so. You might be thinking, hang on, there's a big hole in the back of ours, and well, we can't see behind this egg image. So we're going to make it slightly different just for the demonstration of this video. So I won't go into too much complex editing right now. We are going to now edit these boundaries of this egg chair. So as you can see, they're quite tiny. As you can see on the image, the outer ones are thicker and the inside ones are thinner. I think I can see like a thick one out the back there, and I'm going to assume there's another thick one. So there's like 4 of them, sort of thing, going around. But that's not a problem. This will look slightly different to the image, just for the demonstration purposes of this video. So we're going to go over here to wireframe, and we're going to hit boundary. Now what that does is that just tidies up, that just closes the edge lip here. If I untick that, you'll then see what I mean. You can see that is open. So unless you're using double-sided materials in Unity or Unreal Engine or any other gaming engine you're using, let's click boundary and close that up. So everything on the outside will be visible, and no normals are flipped currently at the moment. We can then increase the thickness size if we wanted to. Okay, so I think that's a bit too thick maybe. We can do relative, so scale the offset by surrounding geometry. Sometimes this does help. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, let's have a look at the difference when we untick it and untick it. Obviously, the thickness definitely makes a difference. But I think in this case, I do believe it might help. I've noticed it's more, it does slightly make a difference. So I'm going to put that as 0.15, round that up to that. Yeah, I like that for now. Yeah, in fact, I'm going to put it 0.12. Ah, that's better. Yeah, I like that. That's better. So, offset. We don't need to keep it offset. We'll just keep that on 0. So we've evened it out, and we've ticked the relative for now. It has replaced the original. You can untick it, and of course, the original is still there, as you can see. But we want to replace the original because we have a backup one anyway. So to confirm this modifier, when you're happy with it, we're going to click the drop down arrow and click apply. Some modifiers you might not want to apply until the very end, because there might be changes you may want to do later on. Also, as well, we have a backup version just in case we need to make any changes, which we will make changes as we go along. So we will actually unhide our previous duplicated one, because we want to make, let's go and make a cushion. So we're going to make a cushion and place it nicely, roughly like it shows on the image. So building a cushion, it's not too complex. We're going to bring in a sphere. So and press Tab into object mode. Make sure you deselect whatever you have selected. So just click off screen into the open space. Press Shift A. We're going to Mesh and we'll go to Cube. So our 3D cursor is down here, so our mesh will show up where the 3D cursor is. So I'm going to press GZ and I'm just going to bring that up. I'm going to bring that up to just 4 for now. And then I'm going to scale that, press S, then Z, scale that down like so, say about 0.5. Yes, it's a bit thick at the moment, but don't worry. We're now going to use a modifier. So we're going to come back over here to modifiers. This is the little blue icon spanner. Add modifier. And we're going to go generate. And we're going to use the subdivision surface modifier. What that does, it tries and smooths all the edges and faces down to make it as round as possible. Because it was a cube, it will add some geometry in, and you can add more geometry in like so if you needed to. Just bear in mind, the more levels viewport you click over here, the higher the geometry gets. So we're going to press G and Z. I'm going to bring that down like so. Just using our eye. We're not actually going to calculate this. I'm just going to roughly just place that there for now. Okay. So we'll go into, we're going to press Tab. And now we're going to add some edge loops around this box. Don't worry about the shape too much. The more edge loops you add, the more of the shape will change. So in face select up here, number 2. When you press number 2, we press Control R, and then we now have an edge loop appear up. So same with the selection. Make sure your cursor is hovering over the edge that you want to put your edge loop around. When you're happy about that, you can press the scroll wheel to increase the amount of edge loops, or scroll wheel down to decrease the edge loops. We're going to go for 2 at the moment. You can also just type it from your mouse or your keyboard. I do have numbers on my mouse, so if I say mouse, forgive me. So number 2, Control R, add an edge loop. I'm going to scroll wheel for this because there's only 2. Left click is to confirm, and then we still have hold of it. And then what we're going to do when we left click to confirm, and we don't want to move this, we want to keep it in the same position it originally was, we just press right click to cancel. So right click is always to cancel, and left click is to confirm. So we've got 2 edge loops going down the middle here, and we have them both selected, as you can see, the selection highlight. We then going to press S to scale and X along the X axis. As you can see, the scaling, grabbing, and rotating in object mode or edit mode will always be the same. So once you've got those 3 combinations combined with X, Y, and Z, there is a lot of things you can manipulate and edit and build any asset you desire. So we've got these edge loops. We're going to push them along the sides. I'm going to say we're going to push that, I'd say 2.4. Let's have a look. Yeah, that'll do for now, just 2.4. I do like to use measurements and without doing it free by the eye. Just in case I've messed something up, you can always come back and redo it. And you can guess roughly where it was previously before, because it's a nice round number. I think this might just be a personal preference, but in my time of building assets, I feel like it's helped me in a lot of ways, and I've not had to redo objects because I've lost the scale of what the object should be. So we're going to add in 2 more edge loops. So same again, Control R, make sure your cursor's near the edge. Scroll wheel up for 2 edge loops. We're going to press left click to confirm, right click to cancel, because we want it to be placed there. And then again, I'm going to press scale, and we're going to press it along the y-axis this time, because it's the other way. So as you can see, as I'm pushing it up, I'm going to say 2.4 again. And as you can see, it is now creating some kind of a cushion. So I'm going to press Tab for object mode, And there we have it. We have some kind of a cushion at the moment. So we're going to press scale and Z and just scale that down like so. Let's scale that to about 0.6. Nice big fluffy cushion. And then we're going to press G and Z and bring that down. And don't be afraid to move your camera angle. I do it all the time. I'm constantly pressing middle mouse button, holding shift to pan around. So G and Z, just sit it on there. Don't matter if it's gone through, we will sort that and get to that later on. So that will do for now. We might want to scale it up, maybe slightly bigger, GZ. You may want to press GY, push it back in a bit, maybe. There you go. Don't worry, it's coming through at the back. That's not a problem. What we could do is actually, we can go back into edit mode. We could select, so we've got face select these top edges because the modifier is still on. We can click on the proportion tool and press G and Z on these back three, and we can just either pull it up. Actually, we're going to just come in here and we're going to make sure on face select, hold shift and just select these at the back and underneath, just because we're going to now bring this up a little bit so it's not inside the, gone through the, just sit it there roughly like that. Alright, I think that's okay, just leaving it like that. Okay, just raise that up a little bit. Okay. Just a quick reminder, try and keep everything along the X and Y axes before you start rotating and changing the certain bits of an object. This is because later on you might realize, oh, hang on, I needed to do this, and it could be more fiddly to edit. That's where this global and local transform comes into, which does help from time to time, which I will discuss that in a later lesson. So here is our cushion. I think I quite like that, to be honest. The back, I think, of the egg shape maybe is a bit too deep going out. I want to bring that in a bit. I think the best way to do that is to select, because we haven't done any change on the wireframe, what I'm going to do is, so we can keep the shape and we can still edit it as we go along, I'm going to select the plane, the backup of the of our egg-shaped chair. I'm going to hide the, I'm going to select the sphere, this is the wireframe. So I'm going to just double click up here and just type in wireframe, so we know which one's the wireframe. And then this is the sphere. So I'm just going to hide the wireframe for now. Click on the sphere. I'm going to go to edge select, hold shift and alt, double click on the edge loop, like so. And I'm going to make sure that my proportion tool is turned on. I'm going to press G and Y. So, and I'm just going to push this in a bit. So, playing with the proportion tool, as you can see, sometimes it might not go in the way you want it to. Like for this case, it's okay, but not quite happy with that. So up here next to your proportion tool, you've got different types on how you want it. I'm going to, it wasn't smooth, but I'm going to try sphere. Sphere is normally quite a good one as well. So I'm press G, Y, still got that selected. And I'm now going to push that in like so. I don't want to go too far. No, it's not. Okay, no problem. This is where you can trial and error and practice to get the shape you want. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, that's looking much better. Yeah, okay, so I'll just push it in like that. Okay. So the problem with that is now I've pushed that in with the proportion tool. You'll notice these edge loops are not equal. So there might be multiple ways of doing this, but a good way that I know of is we want to make these edge loops, we want to make the planes equal as they're going back in. So the best way to do that is we want to put space. So I press number 1 for vertex select. I'm going to press Control and then click the other vertex. What that does, it selects all the vertices in the middle between one side to the other. Instead of holding Shift and clicking each one, you can just click on the first one, oops, and hold Control and click on that last vertex. And then what we're going to do is we're going to press right click, Loop Tools and Space. Don't panic, you might not have loop tools there. That's okay. We're going to enable that, which is built into Blender. So we go up here to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons. We're going to type in Loop Tools. There you go, just type in Loop, and then all you got to do is enable Loop Tools. You don't have to restart Blender on this one. So once you've enabled your Loop Tools, we'll just close that, and now you can select your vertices. That's number 1 on your selection. Press right click, Loop Tools, and then Space. Okay, don't worry, this will look a little bit jagged like so, but it has done exactly what we need it to do. So now, like earlier, when I was explaining on pressing 0 on your scale, we're going to now scale these edge loops to the Y on 0. And what I mean by that is we're going to edge select, we're going to hold Shift and Alt, double click our edge loop. We want to make sure our proportion tool is turned off, and we want to make sure we scale this by pressing number 1 for vertex on using the reference of our vertex here on each vertex. And to do that, up here, there's a little tool here. It's a transform pivot point. We want to click on that and select active element. So this is a little bit more intermediate advanced sort of area. But this will come in handy in a lot of times, so feel free to write some notes down for this. So as you can see, I have selected, so Shift and Control, and you can select on number 1, and you can select all the whole edge loop of all the vertices, and the white is your main selection. The orange is your other selections, but the white is your main selection, and that's important. So as long as your transform pivot point is on active element, we can then press S for scale. Oops, let me do a bit further away. S to scale, and press Y, and then 0. As you can see, it now puts all the vertices exactly aligned in a straight line, pushed up on the Y axis. If I look at it exactly on the side, as you can see, it's a straight line going straight down. As you can see, we've now aligned that up. So we want to do that with every edge loop. So number 1 or number 2, make sure our vertex is our main selection. And again, we want to press scale, Y, 0, left click to confirm. So number 1, we'll click on this one first, Shift and Alt, double click or just single click. And again, S, Y, 0, left click to confirm. Don't worry if it's gone over the geometry up top here or bottom, ignore it, not a problem, because we're going to do that with the rest of the edge loops now. So click on your first one or deselect your last ones. Make sure you always deselect your previous ones because you don't want to make it look funny when you're scaling it down. So we want to hold Shift, Alt, click, and then scale Y, 0, left click to confirm. Click, Shift, Alt, left click, and then S, Y, 0, left click to confirm. Now we don't have to do it on the end one because it looks like it's straight, but just in case, we can just click on it, press S, Shift Alt, click. Oh, sorry. Um, also, just when you're pressing Shift and Alt and clicking on vertices, um, just make sure your cursor is above the vertex that you wish to select and not on the side, otherwise you will be selecting the opposite side. If you want to know how to make these vertices bigger, just let me know in the description below or join my Discord and just give me a shout. I can show you where to find that in your properties panel in the edit menu in the preferences. Um, so obviously we've got that one selected. We're going to press Shift and Alt and one click and it selects all of them. And we're just going to press S for scale, Y on the y-axis and 0. So there you go. Now we know it's spaced evenly between all the way around, like so. And that looks pretty good to me. It does look
I'm not
like...
quite sure how to help you with that.
Okay, Alexa's talking to me. Right, it does look like it's sticking out a little. So if we, oops, let's hide this image just for now. I've gone into perspective mode, and as we can see, it looks slightly different here to like this side. That's not a problem at all. What I would recommend fixing this is sometimes using a mirror is quicker to fix this than start editing the whole mesh. Bearing in mind, again, this is more intermediate advanced level. I'm going to do it very quickly because it's a lot to cover, which I will do later on. I'm going to delete one half of the egg. I will explain as I go along. Press X to delete on the faces. I'm going to select these edge loops like so. Oops, I've got this face at the bottom. I'm going to select this edge loop and this top edge loop and just make sure that is exactly in the middle. So I'm going to press N, have a look on the X axis. Yeah, that's good. Okay, that is exactly on 0 on the X, which is exactly what we need. I'm going to press Shift S and put the selection to the 3D cursor there. Press Tab to object mode. I'm now going to press Control and no, not actually. I'm going to press right click, set origin to 3D cursor. So we want the origin point exactly there. So now we can mirror it exactly on the X axis. So we're going to add the mirror modifier, generate mirror X axis. Now if we confirm this mirror and it's on the X axis, go into edit mode. If we now look at it from behind, it's now mirrored the nice side to the right hand side. We know the gaps are equal on the left hand side, and the right hand side it was a little bit funky. So now it's mirrored exactly the way how it should be. You can leave it a bit funky if you wish. I mean, I do like things to be symmetrical, and it helps with your workflow later on. The pillow at the back here, we're going to just click on that in object mode, go back to edit mode, and as you can see, it is still currently selected. I'm actually going to press S and Z and just scale that down. As you can see, it's scaling from the bottom. That would be because my selection must have been at the bottom somewhere. So let's go back up to here and turn this back to median point. So when we're now scaling, you can see the dotted lines going to the center of what I've previously selected. Press Z and scale that down. Let's scale it down a little bit. I'd say 0.5, let's go half. And then I'm just going to press G and Z and just bring that up inside just so we don't see it. It don't matter if the selection is popping out, but yeah. You can bring that in a bit, you can make the pillow smaller, you can really edit this, you can stick an edge loop around the middle. In fact, let's just Control Z instead of just making one pillow smaller than the other, let's just stick an edge loop around the center. So that's Control R, click face select. I'm going to hold, face select, Shift Alt, double click that edge to select all of them going round, and then the same again on the top end, and then I'm just going to select these three faces on the end. We can just either press GZ to bring that up like so, or actually it's just Shift Alt and double click, or just single click to deselect. Press GZ and just bring that up. As you can see, it looks like we're bending the cushion now because of the shape of the egg chair, which I think is better actually. So GZ, let's just bring that out of the egg chair, and then sometimes if you can't see the edge in the subdivision surface modifier, you can come up here and click and toggle the X-ray and find your edges if you need to. And press GZ and bring that down a bit, but not too far down so I don't come through the egg chair. I think that's good. That looks good to me. Again, I'm just going to select this side, press GZ. No, that's fine actually, I'll leave that the way it is. So there you go, we'll just have a bit of a bent cushion as it looks like it's lying in the egg chair, which looks absolutely perfect, I think. Yeah, that's good, I like that. What we're going to do with this, we're going to duplicate this and put another one sort of on top in the back there. So we're going to press Shift D in object mode, and we're just going to press right click to cancel. We're then going to rotate it on the x-axis, I'd say about 90 degrees, and press G and Z to bring that up. I'd say about 2.4. It's a bit too high, but that's okay. We'll bring it down back down in a second. G, Y, pushing it back. So let's push that back. So G and Y, set that there, and then GZ, bring that down a little bit. So this is just by eye. So all we're doing now is putting it into place, pressing G and R, and then along the axes. So that's rotate on the x-axis. You can place it like so. If you want to change the form of the cushion, if you want to bend it, you can go into edit mode. You can go edge select, and then go all up and select it going around. And then you press G and Y, you can bring it out, push it in. Just grab things by pressing G and rotate them when you've selected them. You can do it on face, edge, or vertex select. So back into object mode, we could just put that up like so. We could just rotate that actually on the x-axis. GZ, just have that sat on top of the back like so. You place it however you like it. I quite like that actually, that's not too bad. By the way, these models will be free in my Discord to download, so feel free to come and grab these models from my Discord, drop in, say hello, and feel free to ask me any questions about Blender. UV unwrapping, textures, we'll even go through Substance Painter as well later on. So I'm just tweaking this at the moment. Okay, it's a bit too far forwards. Okay, I am G and Z, and then rotating on the X and all this. Right, yeah, that's good. Right, that looks fantastic. It's not coming out from the edge, so just looks like a double curved cushion. You've got that effect right there. That looks very comfy to sit in. Fantastic. Before I duplicated this, another workflow example is you might want to UV unwrap this and give it a nice pattern. To do that, you would go into edit mode and you could select your edges like so, Shift O, double click, and then in edge select mode you can right click and then mark seam. This is how you would mark your seams, and a good example of marking your seams, if you imagine a cereal box and you think of flat packing your cereal box and opening it up, That's basically what the seams would do. It's the cut line, like a box, and then you have it, like if you picture it in your head of it flipping open and having it flat in a 2D image, and that's how you put 2D images onto 3D objects. So I'll go more into that in a later lesson, but for now we are going to leave it like that. Okay, next we are going to add, we're going to duplicate our sphere. As we changed it earlier, we are actually going to go up here and we're going to delete our old wireframe object. I'm just going to hit delete on that because we will not be using it. Going back onto this egg shape that we have used, we are actually going to duplicate that. Shift D in object mode, right click to cancel. We're going to hide that second one. It's going to be, I'm just going to call it egg shape BU for backup, and then hit enter. And then this one, I'm just going to call it egg shape. Naming things as you go along is not a bad idea, so you're not confused on what things are. You can click on the object. I mean, you could just press F2, just type in cushion 1, and then you can do click on the other object, and then press F2, cushion. I can't spell cushion. That's okay. No one's judging me, I hope. Right, so we got our cushions like so. Right, so after we've named our objects in the scene, we are going to select the egg shape and we are going to go and add the wireframe modifier. So let's go to add, so go down here to the blue spanner, add modifier, go to generate, and we're going to go onto wireframe. And then we, same as before, I'm just going to click the boundary and relative and increase the thickness to our liking. Say 0.14 looks good enough to me. Actually, maybe 0.13. Yeah, I like 0.13, slightly better. So yes, we've just done that on the backup version, no problem. Let's just change that. Let's put the other one as a backup. We can't have the same names, by the way, that's why I didn't remove the BU completely. So there we go. We've got our main one, and then we have our backup. So let's just hide the backup for now. Okay, that's looking good. Sorry, let's bring back the image. Totally forgot to do that. So there we go. So let's bring back. So actually, I think I'm quite happy with that, to be honest. But the cushions in the side just sat there, just chilling. So the bottom bit. Now let's put some legs onto our egg chair. So best way to do this, I would say, is on the wireframe. Now I like the way the wireframe is, so let's apply the modifier. If we then click into edit mode on the wireframe, as you can see, they're in rectangles all the way around. And if we press number 1 for vertex select, we could select the vertex selects, and we can just press E to extrude. So that's a new tool we haven't used yet. We can press E to extrude along the Z axis. We don't want to go too far down. I'd say -1. -1 sounds good. And then say we want to do GY, and let's just bring it out a little bit. Maybe -0.25. What does that look like? 2.25. Yeah, that's not too bad. GX. Oh, and then push it along the X about -0.25 again. Right, okay. So this we will thicken in a moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to separate this edge as another object. So I'm going to just press right click and selection, or you can press P and then in edit mode, press selector and press P, and you can then select selection. So when this is selected and now it's a separate object, I want to press Control A. So this is going to apply the transforms. I want to apply all transforms. When I've done that, as you can see, the origin point that was up here is now down in the center. So if I now go to mirror, so if I go onto the modifiers, add modifier, go to generate and hit mirror, it's now going to mirror on the other side, all depending on what the origin point is. If, for example, this chair wasn't in line from on the 0 axis, then this wouldn't be lining up. But because it wasn't, because it was symmetrical when we made the mirror modifier for the egg chair, this would be exactly symmetrical. Also, we could press Y to mirror on the Y axis, as you can see. We will do this, and we may extend our chair. So what we could do is press tab, so object mode, select the chair, press number 1 to select vertices, make sure this vertex is selected, and we can press E to extrude and snap it on top of this edge. But before that, we will need to come up here. This is another tool, it's called the snapping tool. So when we click the drop down arrow, we want to click the active, because the vertex we are selecting is active, and we want to snap that to the top. So as long as whatever it is you're moving or dragging, you're snapping it to, if it's the active point, and you want to snap that active point to a different piece of geometry, this is definitely the best snapping button to use. And then we want to select vertex, because we want to snap it to a vertex which is on the edge there. So, and after active and vertex, we're going to ignore the rest of this for now. I'm not going to go through all of this. So we're going to just select on this, press E to extrude, hold Control, and then just hover your cursor over this edge, where, as you can see, it has now snapped exactly in place. Now we can do the same on the other side, or you can mirror that, but I think it's just quicker just to do the same on the other side. E, hold Control, and snap. So let's separate these two edges we've just created, because it is still attached to the egg chair and we don't want that. So we're going to right click, go down to separate, or you can just press P and then separate a selection. Up here is created another object. We now want to join it to the legs, but we don't want to quite do that yet. We want to apply the mirror modifier. If we was to apply these to the legs without applying the mirror modifier, watch what happens. It will now mirror these edges that we've just snapped, like so, as you can see, to the front legs, and we don't quite want that. So let's just press Ctrl Z, go back. We're going to come. We are going to, yes, I think it's best that we will apply the mirror modifier, and we are going to select our little legs coming out, clicking on these, and then right click and join, or Control J to join. So we're going to edit mode, and then press number 1 for vertex. So these are now been joined together, but they haven't quite been fully joined yet. So if we click on this vertex and press G, you can see it's snapped to there, but it's not joined to this edge. Now, the best way to join it to the edge is when you've snapped it to the vertex, you can select both of the vertices or both of the edges. We're going to select both the edges and then go to vertex, because we know that one's not joined over there either. We're going to press M for merge and then merge by distance. When you merge this by distance at the bottom, remove 2 vertices. So the 2 vertices that were there which is 2 there and there was 2 there. So one each side has now been removed, and now it has been joined. So now if I click on the vertex and I press G, as you can see, it is now joined together. That's exactly how we want it. So we're going to rename this and just call it egg chair legs, just for now, so we know what they are. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control A, reset the transform on these legs, because I am now going to go and right click on these, which is currently in a mesh state. So when I right click and convert to curve, down here on the data properties, you can see curve is now turned into a curve. And the reason I've done this is because I'm going to show you a different way of geometry. So you can click this geometry drop down, come down to here and click depth. So under bevel, you can actually go onto the depth and you can create some rounded legs with using the curve modifier. The resolution, we want to drop that down to 0. Let's have a look at that. So it's gone, so it's in a square. Okay, that's not too bad. So I've got some legs now that are now 3D. Right, that's not too bad. What you could do if you wanted, we could join the back legs with the front legs together and make it one long curve together, and it will look, it might look better. Well, depending on what you want to do with this. For now, I'm just going to leave it like that. You can do all sorts of different edits underneath to make it look funky, like it's like in this image. You could do this with everything I've explained so far. Just trial and error, try and practice around with things. I think that's going to be it for these lessons, for this lesson for the egg chair. I will be posting this in my Discord for free for you to download and play about with. And I think that is everything for this lesson. Thank you very much for joining and watching this video, and I will see you later.